and look back at the latest in football. And this weekend there was some incredible stuff. It was a crazy weekend with lots of strange results, and I think we can find out why or how that was. Well, there's two matches I want to look at in this clip. It's Paris with a spectacular poor Paris, not only Notre Dame burning down, but Paris getting shaming the defeat against Stade Rennais in the Coupe de la Ligue final after a 2-0 lead. They lost in penalties, and it's really embarrassing to them, I guess. And that was complete spectacular, unexpected thing and crazy. And the other thing was the Revierderby. You see here the Eiffel Tower of our area, the Ruhrgebiet, like 10 kilometers to this side is BVB and 10 kilometers to the other side is Schalke 04, but we get to this later, so let's start with Paris. And first thing, there is a funny thing, maybe you know it, like these two stars here. Cristiano Ronaldo and Neymar. Here you see an early picture from this guy. They are born on the same day. It's the 5th of February and the sun is on 1516 Aquarius. And on that night, they both played. Juventus played at Inter and Paris in the Cup final. So the moon was, or let's take it for this match started a bit earlier. And you see here the Juventus match started with the moon at 1622. And now let's have a look at Ronaldo's. His chart is not so solid, but I work with this one and it's okay. And his sun is on 1634, so we had 1622 for the moon and 1634 for his sun. And he's this full moon guy, so the moon is also in play, and there's Uranus here, so it's the big figure in the sky. And so he was hot for a goal, and of course he fulfilled the expectations of the astrologer. And he scored his goal, he shot the equalizer for Juventus, and the final result was 1-1. So that was only to be expected from astrological perspective. Now let's have a look at Neymar. He is, after his injury, he was on from the beginning for first time after a really long break. And for him, this is an A chart, so pretty solid burst time. And you see the sun is on 1536 here we have. So the moon was actually separating a bit, but let's pass over this. Because he also scored his goal. And only that what came afterwards wasn't so much to celebrate like with normal days. Because they lost in this incredible manner. And how is that? Can we see this in Neymar's, for example? And of course, pretty much in focus, if you check for Mars, it's on 25. And this is exactly where Saturn is around these days. And if you go for the match chart, Saturn has been on 2030, so that's pretty close, within half a degree. So success with the moon, a goal, and then disappointment with the Saturn on the Mars. Kind of making sense with the South Node as well, of course. And so we have this trace here, and we follow this Saturn, and we find another good argument, because if we go to Tuchel, the manager still manager, I would say, for Chelsea, probably not for long, much longer. This is Tuchel, and with speculative burst time, but it doesn't matter here. If you look, he's with Uranus on 2037, and Saturn in this final was on 2030. So this is within 7 minutes of arc. And if we think back, he had 2 defeats, really a nasty time the last 2 weeks or so. They lost 2 matches, really embarrassing also before already. And it makes sense with the Saturn square and the South Node thing square with the Uranus, I'd say. And to round it up, the thing is, of course, that this was a final match, and maybe you read Frawley Sports Astrology book, and he's mentioning it, he's continuously repeating that his rules are for finals and not for everyday match in the league. But here we have a final, and what do we have? Can we see this outcome here? And if you don't know, the favorite gets first house and the underdog gets seventh house. And what we have, you may say in first look, oh, the moon is running right into trine with Mars, which is slot 1. So it will be an easy ride home for the Paris, for the favorites. But then we look at the lunar part, the part of fortune, and it's at 1738, and the moon is 1636. So even before the trine with Mars perfects, the moon will run into opposition with the part of fortune, and it's one of Frawley's rules that if you get into aspects with the part of fortune, you make full stop and you don't look any further for other aspects. So the Mars here trine doesn't count, kind of thing, kind of way. So things go wrong. It's remarkable. It's even with like the 2-0 lead, you may think this has its influence, so to say, but this is like what really tells the story. And for looking for the underdog, you see Venus is in detriment, is even ruled by Mars, but that's not considered so important. But there's another interesting thing here, because we have the Sun right on the cusp. This is a very important position, and but it wouldn't be so important if we wouldn't have mutual reception, because the Venus, Lord 7, is exalting the Sun, and the Sun that is on the cusp of 7 is in the sign of Venus, so loves Venus, so we get this mutual reception thing, and this is like a dynamic. I've seen this in other charts that's positive for this side, and is supporting, and it would make perfect sense with the match. Incredible story, and yeah, remarkable also this final chart, I'd say, for sure. Yeah, there was a guy. In the end, it was penalty shootout, and it was solid players. But then one guy messed it up, and he lost it all for Paris. And this is a guy Nkunku, also very young, upcoming. And what do we have here? Well, it's not so easy to pinpoint. Remarkably, he also has something here on 15 Aquarius, but the moon is separating, has been separating some. And I can't really nail. The only thing I can say I can get to is that the running Chiron that I have mentioned here several times as painful wound and painful experience is on 4 Aries, and it's on Antition, as mentioned, the mirror points by Antition. It's on Lilith, which is another like black, unpleasant picture thing in the chart, and so those two are conjunct, like by transit, that Chiron is on his Lilith, and that may make him the unhappy person of that night, I'd say. Yes. So this is it. This was the part here. And now we get to the Revierderby, which was a crazy match, completely crazy. And I hope maybe you got something of this. It was completely unexpected result for Schalke. They won 4-2, but not only that, there were incredible things that you don't get so often, to use a mild word. There were 2 red cards for Dortmund within 5 minutes. And the foul, there was 2 straight fouls, and they happened to the same person. Okay, let's make it from the beginning, because this was the match. And the major thing, this was on Saturday, so a day earlier than the Paris thing. You see here the afternoon, and the remarkable thing about this afternoon anyway was that the Neptune Mars was exact. It was exact when this match started. You look here, it was 17:56 for Mars and 17:55:56. It was spot on square. And what do you think, what do you expect with Mars Neptune? It's criminal activity, and it's injury, it's illness. And both applied, so to say, with this red card, violent fouls. And the remarkable thing that it all happened in 5 minutes. And one foul that followed to this red card, there was a free kick, and that was a goal for Schalke again. So it was really bang, 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 all within 5 minutes. Crazy. You never saw this before, I think. And this is the time when it happened. And it's again, I can only say that this is the time Jupiter had just passed the IC, and this is when the first red card came. And what we have is that Chiron is on the ascendant by Antition. And as mentioned several times, it brings the painful thing, it brings red card, penalty, and the painful stuff in the match. And it makes more sense if I show you the chart of the guy who was fouled, because both red cards were due to foul at the same player. It was this guy from Schalke, Serdar, and as said, within 5 minutes he got the same attack from 2 players. And it's, what do we have for this guy? I have speculated over the burst time, but apart from this, we have in his chart, we have the nodal axis, that is so important ever, right there. So this was on the ascendant when this happened, and that Chiron in transit was on here. So this puts him in the spotlight, and it happened when the time was right for it. It makes sense, I'd say. Remarkable. Also, his here Moon, Jupiter is pretty close with the Neptune square that I had mentioned. Although it's not completely exact, but we have Mars here and Neptune, Mars, his Mars, so it probably fits pretty much good enough. So remarkable thing. And one guy got this red card, was Reus, the key player for Dortmund, and it was his first red card. And yeah, he also is, for example, you see his Mars and Saturn is in opposition exact. And with him also, it's again that his Sun is on his Mars by Antition, so he's a player with Mars-Sun conjunction. You have to use Antition, I can only recommend. And Saturn, as said, is opposing here. And well, for him, it was the first red card of his career, in fact. And silly thing to do, really, because he will miss for 1 or 2 matches or so. And now, final, Favre, the manager from Dortmund, he is with Lilith, as I said. His Lilith is spot on, was hit, but not too often, but it makes sense to have him here in contact with this.